You've said that on a lark, you started to design coins and medals, and about 6 years ago had your first minted coin, the bison nickel, which you're wearing on your lapel right now.
My little buddy.
And now you've got almost 10, I guess 9 or 10 pieces that you've completed, and you're in the midst of a project for the World's Money Fair in Chicago.
Yeah.
Tell me about that project.
It's all about the city flag of Chicago, which has 4 stars on it. Each star means something. And in the first project, I looked at a battle that happened at a place called Fort Dearborn, which was in Chicago, the most westerly part of the United States during the War of 1812, and there was a significant war that happened there between the U.S. Army and the indigenous people, and the result of that was probably one of the last great victories for Native Americans in United States history, which made it a very interesting concept to research. When you commemorate something, just like a coin or a medal, there's multiple sides to things. There are sides that deal with ethics and history, and it was a very interesting and kind of painful thing to research, and an interesting aspect of Chicago's history to commemorate on the flag. The next 3 also have odd underpinnings. My next project I'm working on is about the Great Chicago Fire, and commemorating a disaster is a very sensitive piece of business. You have to approach it with not only sensitivity, but with an angle that's going to do something positive. And my angle for this next project is to represent the event allegorically with the use of a phoenix, because Chicago is the city that rose from the ashes. And that's also going to give me, you know, on the fun side, the chance to play with something allegorical, which I've not done in my work. But the next 2 stars are all about the equivalent of Google in history about 100 years ago, the World's Fair, where everything could be at your fingertips. There was one called the Great Century of Progress, and that was in the 1930s, and there was one called the Columbian Exposition that happened before then, and Chicago turned into a welcome mat for the entire world, and great pavilions were built and exhibits were brought to Chicago from all over the world. So that's what I'll be researching with this project all the way through the year 2015.
Wow, that's a long time to work on a project.
Yeah, it is.
How has the work that you've done with medals and coins affected your teaching?
Well, it's shown my students that with a base of knowledge, you can take it in any direction you want, and sometimes those directions are not what you'd normally expect. I started out pretty traditionally as a publication designer and a magazine illustrator, and that's what my education prepared me for. But as part of a comprehensive education, I also learned to think laterally, and that's what I try to do with my students, to give them a foundation of knowledge about illustration and about design so that they can find their own direction. I don't want them to make my work or to become little versions of me, because quite frankly I don't need the competition, but they need to figure out what instrument in the orchestra they are, and once they figure that out, they will play brilliantly.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Meg. It was a pleasure.